My name is Brian. Chapter 3. It's titled Brian 2 points plus 1 big point plus 2 Isabel points. By Thursday of the first week of school, I'm the only one who has any points that were won in Mr. Bingham's class. During Mr. Dither's social studies class, John scored by making a chain out of Dither's pile of paper clips. Dithers didn't figure out that all of his clips were linked until he had taken off 3 of them. By then, everyone in the room was cracking up. Richie scored in Mr. Firestone's gym class by planting a big blob of plastic blood on the gym floor. Before he realized it was fake, Firestone gave a frightened sweeping, looking around the gym like the next thing he expected to see was a dead body under the bleachers. But getting points in Mr. Bingham's classes, math, English, science, and homeroom, is the big challenge. So from now on, if Mr. Bingham is in the room when you score, we call that joke a big joke, and it's worth an extra point called a big point. John and Richie had both tried big jokes, but no one in the class dared laugh, so they didn't score. I've given up my idea about new beginnings and fresh starts. It's hopeless. I'm hopeless. I'm in the lowest reading group, and in math, I can't remember the multiplication tables, even easy ones like 5 times tables. In social studies, we're studying states and their capitals and what each state is famous for, like maple syrup for Vermont. I can't remember any of them but that one. I live for recess, lunch hour, and journal writing period. For a person who hates school, to like journal writing period may sound weird. The reason I like journal writing is because we don't have to write anything if we don't want to, so I don't. The only rule is you have to be holding a pencil and have your journal book open. So for 10 minutes a day, I can daydream without anyone saying, "Stop daydreaming," or asking me for the answer to something that I don't know. The only noise in the room is the scraping of pencils and the hushed voices of Mr. Bingham talking with one kid at a time. It's kind of nice. John and Dan and Richie say they aren't writing anything in their journals either, though it looks like Dan is doing something. I figure he's drawing monsters. I hope he's smart enough not to do one that looks like Mr. Bingham. One thing I think about a lot during this journal time is those Canada geese. I figure they'll be coming back through Sharon on their way south. I think about where I can go to watch them. This time I want to be higher up than the roof of Sharon Center School, which is only 1 story high. During English, Mr. Bingham passes out copies of the play West Side Story. After he talks about it, he assigns parts for reading the first scene out loud. "Brian," he says, "can you read Carlos's part?" He comes in on page 6. I glance at the clock. With any luck, the bell will ring before we get to that part. I half listen to Isabel reading Maria's lines and Jay reading Tony's. I turn the pages when everyone else does. Suddenly, Isabel is hissing, "It's your turn," and pointing to the top of page 6. I take a deep breath and begin. Everyone else has read fast and smart, but not me. I'm slow and stupid. Mr. Bingham or Isabel have to tell me half the words. A couple of kids groan. Finally, my part is over, and it's Isabel's turn again. She reads so fast that Mr. Bingham says, "Isabel, read that speech again. Slower, please, with more expression." I look at the clock. When all 3 hands reach 12, it'll be lunchtime. I stop listening to the play and pretend I'm counting down a shuttle liftoff. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The bell rings, and it's liftoff for me. I jump out of my chair and trip over Isabel's foot. Slam! I'm on the floor, face down. Before I can get up, Mr. Bingham's standing over me. "What happened here, Brian?" I point to Isabel as I get back on my feet, and I say, "I fell for her." Everyone laughs, even Mr. Bingham. John, Dan, and Richie scratch their heads like crazy. I stammer, "I meant I fell over her. She tripped me." "I did not," Isabel says. "You got up before the bell rang." "That's a total lie," I say. Mr. Bingham does a low, slow, "Enough," and everyone quiets down. "Now, class," he says, "you may be excused for lunch." I'm following the others to the door when Mr. Bingham stops me with his big hand. "Wait a minute, Brian, I want to speak with you." "But she tripped me," I stammered. "This has nothing to do with you and Isabel," he says. Me and Isabel, I can't believe he put us in the same breath. Then he tells me that as soon as I eat lunch, I should meet him in the conference room in the library to take a special test. It's to see what areas you're having difficulty in, he says. "I want to help you." Sure, I think. Help me find out how dumb I am. After lunch, I go to the conference room. Mr. Bingham is already there. During the first part of the test, he asks me questions that I answer by talking. A lot of those questions are easy, and after a while, it's sort of fun. Excellent, he says. That's very good, he says. Then he tells me to read some questions myself and write the answers. Take as much time as you need, he says. Get up and stretch if you get tired. You're excused from your next class. He stands up himself. I'll be back in a little while to see how you're doing. After finishing the first set of questions, I go over to the library window and look out at the other kids playing soccer. Richie misses a ball I know I could have gotten. Jenny makes a strong kick. The girls who play soccer with us, Jenny, Irene, and Mary, are as good as we are. But the snotty acting girls, the ones who wear dangling earrings and wild-colored clothes and already go to the 7th grade parties, they don't play at all. They just hang out watching and giggling. I see Isabel sitting on the ground with her back against the building and her face in a book. Isabel isn't playing with anyone. She never does. She's not even popular with the unpopular girls. All Isabel cares about is being smarter than anyone and showing it off. She's also weird-looking, bigger than anyone else in the 6th grade, even John. And she has this long black hair that's always hanging in her face and looking like it's full of cooties. John calls her Ape. The only time Isabel smiles is when she gives the right answer to a question in class or when someone else gives the wrong answer. The bell rings for the end of lunch and I go back to the test. Friday, as we're leaving for the day, Mr. Bingham stops me again. This time he hands me an envelope. Brian, give your parents this note. I'm setting up a meeting with them for next week. I didn't do anything wrong, I tell him. Isabel and Jay bother me all the time. Maybe you should move me. I want to speak to your parents about your academic work, Brian, he explains, not your classroom behavior. I think about how little work I've done in school, of my broken vow to do better, of the homework I didn't finish, of not writing in my journal. I remember my father's threat. The day I have to go to that school is the day you say goodbye to those karate lessons. Because I'm more afraid of my father than I am of Mr. Bingham, I blurt out. I start to blurt out. You said we don't have to write in our journals if we don't want to. I hold my pencil the whole time. Brian, you're having difficulty with your schoolwork, but you're a very bright young man. I want to help you. I want us all to help you. That means I need to see your parents. They never come to school. I try to hand him back the envelope. It's a rule in our house. They never come. I'll do better work, I promise. I pat my backpack. Look, I got all my homework. He hands the envelope back to me. Give it to them, Brian. My home phone number is on it. If there's a problem about coming to school, let them tell me themselves. Freedom, freedom, John shouts as we bike race one another to the hideout after school. It's a sunny, hot, summer-like day. We hide our bikes in the woods and go in through the door of the shed. I take a deep breath of musty air. Boy, it feels good to be back. As soon as we're in our places, Dan takes out the little notebook he's using for our Operation JDBR scores and recites, Brian, 7 points for jokes on Monday and Thursday. John, 2 points for a joke on Tuesday. Richie, 2 for a joke on Wednesday. Dan, 0. No one scored today. We each gave John $2 for the pot. Dan says that since we have $8 and we've earned a total of 11 points, each point is worth 72 cents. How do you figure that? Richie asks. I divided the value of the pot by the number of points, Dan explains. $8 divided by 11 points equals .7272, which I rounded off to 72 cents. So if we divide the pot today, I'd get 0 times 72, which is zilch. Richie and John, you get 2 times 72, which equals $1.44. And Brian would be the winner with 7 times 72, which is $5.04. There'd be 1 cent left over, he adds, which we could just leave in the pot. No one says how amazing it is that Dan figured that out. John grabs me in the arm lock and says, good thing we're not dividing it until Christmas. Gives me plenty of time to catch up. I back kick him and we fool around like that while Dan and Richie look for a safe place to keep the money. They find an old tobacco can filled with nails. We empty out the nails, put the money in the can, and hide it in the crawl place under the shed. Richie gets the last of our summer supply of candy out of a clay planter. Let's each have a chocolate bar. What do you say? We all cheer. And let's pretend this is the first weekend of summer vacation, Dan says. Let's pretend it all weekend. Yeah, John agrees as he catches the candy that Richie throws in his direction. As I catch my candy bar, John says, Brian, you were right. First Brian, the brain, and then to say I fell for Isabel. Man, that was brilliant. While they're all congratulating me, I'm thinking, I didn't make either of those jokes on purpose, and I didn't even think that they were funny. I also remember the note from Mr. Bingham that's in my backpack, and I don't feel brilliant or feel like celebrating. This weekend is going to be the beginning of the end of my life and the end of my karate lessons.